Travis, does that mean you're ready for me to start?
We're letting some people filter in, but we are officially live streaming.
To kick it off.
All right, our numbers are slowly declining with the climb, so we will start in about 30 seconds. Okay, we are at 180 attendees. We can get started. Thank you everyone for coming over.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenya Merritt, and I am the Chief Small Business Officer with the City of Chicago. Thank you so much for joining us for the first ever collaborative government summit. We are excited to join you today to share opportunities that each of our organizations will provide through the American Recovery Plan, as well as existing opportunities that support our city, county, and state through recovery. In today's session, you'll hear from myself, my amazing colleague Nina, and the Chicago Department of Planning and Development, Sochi Flores, Bureau Chief for the Cook County Department of Economic Development and her team, and Jonathan McGee, who is the Deputy Director for the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. So we'll head right into my slides. And so I'll provide a brief overview of the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. I understand that some people may not know what our department does, so I'll just briefly share. Our department wears multiple hats. One as a regulatory agency, but the other is to support and strengthen Chicago's small business landscape. We do this through providing small businesses a platform to thrive through the access to resources. We also connect businesses to opportunities to grow our local economies while also protecting our consumers and workers. Next slide. BACP does this through licensing over 60,000 businesses annually. This includes permits for outdoor dining and sidewalk cafes, which we've all come to love throughout the pandemic. We also work with business service organizations who are the linchpin between us at City Hall and what's happening in our neighborhoods. And these organizations are amazing partners in the provision of driving hyper-local business development and economic development support in our communities throughout Chicago. And so in terms of the Chicago Recovery Plan, we're super excited to be able to provide or invest approximately $46 million into Chicago businesses, into our business service organizations, our nonprofit organizations, as well as our commercial corridors. And so the way that we have divvied up this $46 million are in three categories. We have $18 million that will go towards supporting small businesses. That looks like capacity building, for back office as well as technology. And we're looking to engage both for-profit businesses as well as business and economic development organizations to assist in administering this program. These capacity building supports may include technical assistance with either starting, growing, sustaining, or even transitioning businesses in our communities, while also supporting back office operations. And one of the things that we also want to support are businesses that are looking to do business with the city or any other governmental entity. And we're looking to release an RFP for these services in Q2, with the services being available for small business owners in Q3. Next, we have $18 million in support to nonprofits that are providing critical services in our neighborhoods. And we're looking to provide capacity building supports, which again may include technical assistance around starting, sustaining, and growing a nonprofit, applying for city contracts, and we're looking for the ability to have a flexible capacity building support to organizations that are looking to attain financial stability as well as scale their services. Very similar timeline to our support for small businesses. We're looking to have an RFP released in late Q1, Q2, with services to begin in Q3. And then finally, we will have $10 million in support allocated towards food equity. We're really excited about this initiative, and we're looking to fund 3 major activities. The first being a good food fund, the second an incubator, and last urban ag. We've been very much focused on setting up our good food fund, which will provide grants and resources to small businesses, as well as food-based entrepreneurs here in Chicago. And we're working with a work group that will help us develop the framework. We anticipate that the release of the RFP will be available in Q2 and will close in Q3. And so in terms of support and help with putting an application together or just getting general support around the opportunities that were discussed today, BACP partners with about 65 different business service organizations throughout Chicago as a part of our Neighborhood Business Development Center program. And you can find more information about that program at the link listed below, chicago.gov/NBDC. Next slide. And we also partner with 8 different community-based organizations as well that will help businesses with the licensing process. So with all of the opportunities that you've heard today, some of the requirements are that businesses are licensed before you can even be considered a supplier with the city of Chicago. And so if you need help with that licensing process, we partner with 8 different business service organizations that are strategically located throughout the city that can help you navigate that process. And then finally, here at BACP, although we're not in person totally, we still provide support virtually for small business owners that need assistance with counseling. We partner with organizations like SCORE, as well as the Chicago Lawyers Committee Group, and Allies for Community Business and Women's Business Development Center to provide support around access to capital. So as you're thinking about these opportunities, whether you're a nonprofit organization or you're a small business owner, these are amazing resources that can help you navigate the application process as well as help you with back office support. And just additional information about my department. Here's where we're located. We're in City Hall on the 8th floor. If you're interested in learning more about our department, please feel free to email the address listed here. We will add you to our newsletter. So as the opportunities that I discussed earlier, that $46 million and those 3 different buckets that I shared, we will be making sure that folks are aware of it in our newsletter, as well as on our social media account. So if we go to the next slide, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, any possible social media platform there is, we are on it. And we are very diligent and intentional in making sure that all of the opportunities that are available through our department will be shared through these outlets on the city's website, as well as on the newsletter if you choose to sign up for it. We'll take questions at the end of our session today, but now I am going to transition to my amazing colleague who is doing great work in the Department of Planning and Development, and she will talk about some of the great opportunities that they have available. Nina?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kenya, for that amazing introduction. You too are awesome, and I really enjoy working with you and BACP on all of these things, including the Chicago Recovery Plan. I am Nina Edemudi. I'm an assistant commissioner with the Department of Planning and Development. For those of you who do not know what the planning department does, we are the chief planning agency in the city of Chicago, which means that we think about the comprehensive growth of both the city and its neighborhoods. We control the zoning and the land use policies throughout the city. And we also have many different economic development tools in our tool belt in order to help development, including TIF and the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. If we could go to the next set of slides here. Thank you. So I'm going to just give you an overview of, I'm sure that you've heard a lot about the Chicago Recovery Plan as a whole. We can go to the next slide, and the bigger picture. And so this is just kind of reiterating kind of like that bigger picture of all the different Chicago Recovery Plan funds happening throughout the city. And then here in this blue box, you'll see the 3 focus areas for the planning department specifically. And I'm going to go through each of those categories. We have about $237 million to distribute, which is really exciting. And we have some really dynamic programs that we hope to get off the ground and get back into to the community. You can go to the next slide. So one of our first programs, we have a community climate investment bucket of funds that we will be utilizing to help with neighborhood resiliency, talking about retrofitting certain neighborhood anchor buildings, some of them public, well, most of them being public, at least when it concerns DPD, doing more industrial solar projects. And then of course, that kind of community level climate adaptation is really important and something that will make our city more resilient. And so with this line of programming, you should be seeing more information coming out hopefully in the summer. But we are excited to get those programs off the ground. We are still in the programmatic planning phase for this set of programs, but excited to get that going. You can go to the next slide. This next set of funds, the small business and workforce support. So this is where we work really closely with BACP. We have a bucket of funds for commercial and neighborhood activation investments. So you may have heard of Pop Ports, which is a really exciting project for us to take a vacant lot and kind of utilize it for outdoor use for the public. And so we are actually going to be releasing a request for proposals for more projects like that to activate kind of like those outdoor vacant lots. They can be private, they can be publicly owned, or lots of different elements that are in that request for proposals, and that should be going out in the next week or so. So please be on the lookout at our website, and I'll reference the website at the end. And then we have our Street Ambassador program, which we're trying to create in order to facilitate safer environments on commercial corridors. And so more information will also be coming out about that. We are in the planning stage for that bucket of funds as well. Next slide. The community development bucket of funds, you probably have heard about this the most coming from our department, because we did release a community development grant, which I will actually go into more detail about after in this presentation. So we have our community development grants, which actually launched in late December, and our first round closed January 31st, but it's a rolling application. We have our vacant lot reduction resources. So we're looking at studying the environmental implications of some of our publicly owned lots, just to understand what the environmental cleanup looks like. And then also some beautification funds are also lumped in there. Our community wealth building pilot will look at different ways in which we can empower community members to have more community ownership models in their businesses. So we're really excited to get that off the ground, and that's also in the planning phase. And then our equitable transit-oriented development grants. We actually did a pilot of this at the end of last year, and this money, this money from the federal government will help to expand that and enable more businesses to open up and be supported by transit. So we're also really excited about that. Go to the next slide. So I'm going to go more in detail about the community development grant, since that is a grant that we already currently have open. And so the purpose of this program is to expand DPD's investments and support catalytic development in throughout Chicago, to strengthen local corridors, enhance neighborhood vitality, and drive economic development, equitable economic development. We can go to the next slide. So the uses for these grants can be expansions or renovations for existing businesses. You can also have new locations for startup businesses or existing businesses if you would like to switch locations, and then also new construction on vacant properties. And so the grant amounts are, you can apply for up to $5 million, but there's a small grant check that's under $250,000, and then there's a large grant track that's $250,000 to $5 million. And so you do have to decide which track you'd like to apply for. You cannot apply for both, and your grant cannot be more than 75% of the total project cost. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So to be eligible, this application is open to anybody in commercial, mixed use, or light manufacturing projects, also business owners and entrepreneurs, property owners, and community developers, and then applicants from all over the city, which is different than our typical neighborhood opportunity fund. Eligible expenses include interior renovations, build outs for incoming businesses, if you need acquisition or site preparation, demolition, architectural engineering fees, if you need any roofing or facade improvements, mechanical systems, HVAC, and then also we'll cover security systems and ADA improvements. Go to the next slide. So the Chicago Recovery Plan is expanded beyond our normal kind of neighborhood opportunity fund. There's no locations that are limits to specific corridors. We are also taking light manufacturing, which is different than our other existing programs. And we're also taking mixed use residential projects. So if you have a building on a corridor with maybe some vacant commercial space at the bottom and maybe some vacant residential units at top, we will consider those in this grant making process. And then we're also taking vanilla box processes. So if you're like, I don't have a tenant yet, but I have a building and I want to get it ready for a tenant, we'll also take those. Go to the next. All right, so the project selection. So priority will be given to applicants that incorporate these three components. So is it catalytic with a strong local impact? And so, that's very important for us. Again, these funds are supposed to be used in order to help revitalize areas that have been hit hard by COVID. And so we want to make sure that there's a catalytic impact. Projects located in historically disinvested areas and also build upon existing efforts like our Invest Southwest initiative or our community safety initiatives. Projects that demonstrate momentum and are expected to break ground in 2022. So we are prioritizing projects that just need that little bit of push, maybe need a little bit of funds, but that could break ground this year. And then site control is preferred, but not required. Again, it kind of goes into your readiness and if you're ready to break ground soon. You can go to the next slide. All right, so I'm going to try to breeze through this application process. So as I mentioned earlier, the first round has ended, but it's a rolling application. So the second round will end in March 10th. So you can still submit applications right now. And then of course, there's another round that will happen in the summer. The application just depends on, depending on if you want 250 and below or above, you'll go to our online portal and either use Submittable or use an editable PDF. We are also in the process of making both of our applications available through Submittable, which will be easier for applicants. But right now, this is how we have it set up, but those improvements are coming. Go to the next. So small grants, like I said, there's an application portal. It's already opened in January, and it's a rolling application. You can access it at chicago.gov/SHI recovery grants, and you can go there. You can fill out the project assessment, and then the other PDF application is posted online. And if you go to that website, you'll be able to find the links to both of them. Next. Again, the other application is in an editable PDF, but same system. It comes directly to us, and we will be upgrading that application soon. Just make sure you read the directions really carefully in order to make sure that you have all the correct attachments. Next. If you have more questions about this, you can go to the Community Development Grant Resources page, and there's other materials and things there to answer questions. We have an FAQ also on the Chicago Recovery Plan Development Grant page website, which I know is a mouthful. So there's an FAQ there. We are constantly updating it with your questions. And then if you have any questions that are not answered there, you can email us directly at dpd@cityofchicago.org, and then we'll get back to you within a few business days.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nina, for your presentation. Lots of helpful information. I know we're talking about some programs that are in the pipeline, but you guys have hit the ground running in terms of ARP and have a ton of opportunities that are available now. So I hope that our audience found that to be very helpful. So now we are going to pivot to our cousins in the county. Sochi Flores, as well as Irene Scher, will share some opportunities from the Bureau of Economic Development at the county. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kenya. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sochi Flores, and I am the Chief of the Cook County Bureau of Economic Development. I am excited to be with you today and proud of the collaborative efforts of the city, the state, and the county in making today's summit happen. We all know that the road to an equitable recovery requires this level of very strong collaboration and commitment from all levels of government. And although it is a very heavy lift, we all understand that to maximize the impact of this historic level of funding, we need all levels of government, of philanthropy, and our private sector partners sharing our collective expertise, leveraging our resources, and coordinating our efforts across the board. Next slide, please. The Cook County Bureau of Economic Development's mission is to lead and promote equitable economic growth and community development. Many people do not know what the Bureau of Economic Development does, so I just wanted to highlight that our Bureau includes the Office of Economic Development, Planning and Development, Building and Zoning, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. And it offers a wide range of programs to drive sustained economic growth and promote vibrant community development. Cook County is the second largest county in the U.S., and our Bureau coordinates closely with over 130 municipalities, including the city of Chicago. We serve as strategic advisors. We leverage our funding with other governmental entities to make sure that our dollars grow, and we convene municipalities and other stakeholders to collaborate around shared initiatives like today's summit. Next slide, please. For 2022, Cook County will be investing almost $100 million to support residents and businesses equitably recover from this pandemic. With this historic level of resources, Cook County has prioritized advancing equity, systems change, and impact. Combined, we know that the city, county, and state will invest over $10 billion to build a more inclusive and stronger region. This morning, you heard about the county's overall approach, as well as what it takes to access these funds. And during today's session, you will hear a bit more about the programs that the county has to support our local small businesses and also residents. Next slide, please. Our Bureau will use nearly a third of the county's 2022 American Rescue Plan Act ARPA dollars to support investments in the Vital Communities policy pillar. That includes support for small businesses, critical household assistance and social services. We will be providing targeted relief to hard-hit sectors and also have many programs to address housing needs and workforce development. We have anchored our work with a commitment to equity, have leveraged partnerships with many of the region's leading economic development, housing, and social service organizations in the development of these initiatives, because we know that we cannot do this alone. This slide here depicts the level of funding allocated to each of our strategic areas of work. Programs funded under ARPA will build on the infrastructure we developed over the last 18 months, with a focus now on shifting from relief to sustainability, future-proofing the economy, and really catalyzing transformative impact. And we will only be able to do that with these strong collaborations, such as the one that we have here with the City of Chicago. I'm now going to turn it over to my Deputy Bureau Chief, Irene Scher, who will speak to you a bit about our small business recovery efforts. Irene?
Hello. Oops. Sorry, I'm having trouble undoing the video if it seems to be locked.
And we can hear you though, Irene. There we go.
Okay.
You're good.
Good afternoon, everybody, and we can move on to the next slide. So here is our small business agenda, and wait one sec, sorry about that. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and they're a major source of employment as well as providing critical goods and services throughout the region. In 2020, Cook County completed an assessment of the small business ecosystem with a focus on suburban Cook. We wanted to understand what resources existed to assist small businesses. And as a result of that, we learned that although there were resources in the suburbs and resources in the city that serve the suburbs as well as the city, there were real voids. So we began to develop a suite of programs and services to support small businesses. Building on the programs we developed in response to COVID in 2020, in 2022, the county wants to build on this and play an increasingly active role in the region's small business ecosystem. Our agenda for the coming year includes development of a Cook County one-stop shop, which we're going to call the Cook County Small Business Source. It will offer business advising services to businesses on a one-on-one basis. Grants will be made available later this year to continue to assist small businesses adjust to the lingering impact of COVID, because every time we think it's gone, it comes back. And in addition, we will be providing increased continued targeted support to businesses in the south suburbs of Cook County. These near-term programs will also facilitate business growth and sustainability for early stage businesses formed since the onset of COVID. We will be providing grants, small grants to these businesses coupled with advising services through our small business program. And these grants will also be made available later in the year. Next slide. And as I think may have been mentioned at lunch, Cook County partnered with a broad range of partners, including the Chicago Community Trust and the Fund for Equitable Resources, as well as a network of small business service organizations to develop what became our network of small business service organizations. And the slide highlights the mix of partners we had in 2020. The strength of our program stems from the dynamic mix of partners, and we believe that we are better together. All the businesses in Cook County, both in the city and the suburbs, are welcome to apply for small business advising services. Our network is something we hope to build on and grow, and we will be soliciting additional partners later in 2022. To access our free small business advising services, businesses can simply go to Cook County Small Biz, BIZ.org, and enter their name, and they will be matched with one of our providers that meets their needs. As mentioned, we will be developing the grant programs in the next coming months, so stay tuned for more information about that. Next slide. We also recognize that some sectors of the economy have been particularly hard hit by COVID, which is why we have a separate set of programs to specifically support the recovery of the tourism, hospitality, and creative industries. We also will be launching some new manufacturing resources to help manufacturers remain competitive by providing advising services and assessments to support investments in technology and development of new supply chains. Information about these programs will also be made available later in the year. Next slide. And thank you all for being here today. We want to stay in touch. Please contact us through the resources that are on the slide, as well as others that have been made available to you today. Thank you. And I think it's back to Sochi.
Thank you, Irene. I think we will hand it back over to Kenya.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Such a wealth of information from Sochi and Irene on the work that you guys have been doing over the past couple of years to support our small business ecosystem, working with partners, providing grants directly to business owners has just been amazing, and making sure that these businesses that are pillars in our community, that they are sustained and that we're starting to see growth. And so we appreciate all of the amazing work that you all have done. And we're just thrilled for the partnership and the collaboration that the city has with the county. And we look forward to our continued partnership with you as we look to transform many of our communities, many of our neighborhoods, leveraging the funding from ARP. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity to truly make investments into our neighborhoods, into our small businesses. And we're super happy to do this work alongside you all, and most importantly, alongside many of our partners that are joining us today for today's conversation. We have one more speaker from the state of Illinois. I believe he's running just a little bit late. Deputy Director Jonathan McGee. But while we wait for Jonathan, I think what we can do is start to answer maybe some of the questions that have popped up in the Q&A. One question that I saw someone asked about licensing. This is why I had to explain what BACP is. I know it's just a mystery what we do here. And so again, we wear many hats. We're the regulatory arm for the city. We're responsible for ensuring that businesses are compliant and that we're also protecting our consumers as well as our employees. But the other side of our hat is that we have a small business center here in Chicago in City Hall, where we license about 60,000 businesses annually. And so there are businesses based upon their activity that may require that they have a city license. And so I encourage you guys, if you're unsure whether or not your business activity requires a license, check out our website. We'll make sure to put the link in the chat. There are some businesses that require a city license and a state license, some that just simply require a state license, such as daycare centers, lawyers, dentists, and then there are some that require a license with our Department of Buildings. And so we know that sometimes that can be a little bit unclear, but we want to make sure that as you guys are starting to think about these opportunities and engaging the city, whether you're a nonprofit organization looking to help us do this work along the way, or you're a small business owner and you're looking to be a supplier, before we let these RFPs, we want to make sure that you have all of your paperwork and your documentation in order. While I missed the conversation that the Donors Forum had during the lunch hour, I hope that some of you guys were able to attend, because ensuring that you have that foundation will make sure that you're set up for success when these opportunities are available and that you don't have to backtrack. Coming in a few months, we will be providing more opportunities for capacity building and just sharing information. We want to ensure that our small businesses and our organizations have access to partner with us, and that some of the things that, again, that are key to engaging with the city, that you've done that work and that you have your documentation in order to participate. And so, Travis, if we wanted to pivot towards the questions, I will just start reading them off, if that's okay, while we wait for Jonathan.
Yes, that would be great.
Awesome. So I think a lot of these questions, Nina, and I think we have one other person available from DPD. are about the Chicago Recovery Plan. So that means that people are really excited about this opportunity. They feel like it's something that that they could potentially partner and be a part of. So one of the questions that we have is, can the recovery plan funding be used to rehab facilities for nonprofits?
So any entity can apply as long as they meet the project eligibility. And so remember, these are community development grants meant to stimulate economic development. So just be mindful of that as you're applying, because if it doesn't actually create catalytic economic development, right? There's social services and there's economic development. I just wanted to make sure that that's very clear. But of course, nonprofits can apply if they have a project that's eligible.
Awesome. That's helpful. So that key word is economic catalytic development. Like when you're thinking about your proposal, when you're putting together that scope of work and you're trying to figure out what will the outcome be for the money that I'm asking for, does it answer that question? And so that's a great lens in which people should be thinking about when they're putting together their proposals. And just one more time, what is the next deadline for that, Nina?
Yeah, so the next deadline is March 10th. It is a rolling deadline. And if your application doesn't get chosen the first time, it doesn't mean you have to reapply. We're evaluating them on a rolling basis. So it just depends on how you score. And if you end up scoring high, then we will consider you. And then I also just want to say, back to the nonprofit question, it's not that DPD doesn't care about social services. There are other departments throughout the city who have funds to support social services. So I just want to be clear that the community development grant is to help with economic development.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just really quickly, someone else had a question about capital funding for shelters. So it's my understanding, I don't have the full scope, it's just something that I heard just from our colleagues in the Department of Family and Support Services. In Track A is focused on community services, and that's where we have our colleagues from the Department of Family and Support Services, which supports the operational expenses for many of our emergency homeless shelters. So if you're looking for additional information around social services, that is also in Track A. As a reminder, all of these sessions are recorded. In addition to that, all of our decks will be available after today's event. And I also want to put a pin. This is not the only time that we are going to be partnering with pulling together our partners from the county and the state. Like, we are in this together. We are cousins in this work. And we want to make sure that you all, our partners that are in community, have the information around the things that we're looking to do as it relates to our ARP. We want this to be a success, but we can't do it without you. And so we're happy that you guys are along with us for this journey. And so it's my understanding that Jonathan has now joined. We're super excited to have Deputy Director of the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity on the call. Jonathan has been in this role for a while, doing great work up and down the state. He'll share a little bit about some of the work that they already have in the hopper, but then also some of their plans for ARP. Jonathan, are you able to turn your camera on so that we can see you?
Yes, so having a bit of technical difficulties. Can folks see me now?
Yes, we can see you.
Awesome. So sorry, I am on my phone, as you all know, Zoom challenges, but appreciate you all for joining us today. And I'm so excited to talk about what the state of Illinois has for businesses, communities, and workers through our ARPA funds. And so we can move forward with the slide deck. So looking forward to talking about some of the programs that we have today. So really quick, and you can move to the next slide really quick. So I just want to talk a little bit about our technical assistance efforts and what we have for businesses and folks that are really trying to figure out, right? Like, how do I actually tap into these funds? How do I tap into these resources? You're probably hearing a ton today about programs, incentives, and grants and loans, and you're just like, where do I really start? And so this slide really shows you my information and my Northeast regional manager's information, in which we can provide technical assistance, which basically means we can help you walk through applications, walk through programs and eligibility rules. And so I want to emphasize that, because in a lot of ways, we always talk about what's available, but we don't talk about how we're going to help you get there and take advantage of it. And so I wanted to start off with that slide and share with you all. Next slide. So many of you all know we had our Back to Business grant program that has in fact closed. But however, we will be planning to roll out $50 million in startup capital for businesses that started in 2020. So right now we're finding an administrator, but once we find an administrator, the goal will be to launch this program and provide that relief for businesses that we know started during a pandemic and really have not been made whole. And so wanted to share that with you as well. Additional funds include our small business SSBCI funding that we have as well. So many of you all, if you're not familiar with SSBCI, that's our state small business credit initiative. And what that means is that in a lot of ways, we have funding to help incentivize banks to provide capital specifically to minority-owned businesses and businesses across the state. And so we have banking partners, and we have folks that we enroll as lenders, in which then they actually provide potential loans, and then we help subsidize that. And so with the new ARPA funds, this fund is going to be exacerbated, even larger, right? And so when you think about funding, access to capital, job creation, this is what you should think. And this is the program that is set up for you. In addition to that, we have a variety of other programs that we will be rolling out as well. And that includes, our regional economic development planning dollars, as well as other funding that we have around job training and economic development. And so just wanted to give you all a broad scope of what's coming down the pike. But more importantly, the goal here for this conversation is to say, connect with my team, connect with me, connect with our regional economic development folks, as well as our navigators, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Next slide. So again, we talked about small business resources, right? And so in a lot of ways, many folks, especially small businesses, you lack the capacity, you lack the technical assistance sometimes. And so our small business.
Yeah, sorry, I keep pressing keys.
Sorry, someone.
I can keep moving forward.
Travis, can you mute Aaron?
Folks, mute, please. Sorry. Okay. Thank you for that. Apologies. Our small business development centers are really aimed at helping to help you with that business plan, to help you connect with resources. So you want to contract with state government, or you want to export. In a lot of ways, when we think about minority-owned businesses and businesses that have been disproportionately impacted by the system, we don't even think about incentives and tax credits and exporting and all of those different items. And so our small business development centers, our procurement technical assistance centers, our international trade centers are all key in that. And so again, just wanted to share with you all that resource as well, and hope that you take advantage of it. Next slide. So again, I talked about SSBCI. The Fund for Advancement for Minority Enterprises is, again, a participating loan program. So if you're a small business, a small minority-owned business, veteran-owned, women-owned, Latinx, AAPI, Native American, you name it, you are eligible to apply for this program as long as you're creating jobs. And as long as you're actually trying to make a significant investment. And this is key, because in a lot of ways, I hear from businesses all the time, I want to grow. A bank won't give me a loan. Well, this is the program where the state will come with you. We'll walk with you and we'll say, hey, what can we do to get you to a yes, right? And so in a lot of ways, just want to make sure you all are aware and make sure that you all take advantage of this program. Next slide. So I talked about trade and investment. Again, exporting specifically is disproportionately impacted in the Black and brown communities and the minority communities in terms of entrepreneurship. And when you think about your product, whether you're a manufacturer, whether you're a retailer, you're a distributor, you look at it, there's a whole global market that exists for you. And in a lot of ways, COVID-19 has showed us that the internet, right, virtual, has made it where we can make sure that we can increase our capital and pivot in a way that can make sure that we're sustainable for the future. And so our Office for Trade of Investment, our international trade centers are designed to ensure that businesses, specifically businesses of color and folks that have been disenfranchised, can actually get those resources and support that they need. Next slide. So again, if you didn't already have enough assistance, I am very proud to talk about our Community Navigator program. And the reason why I'm proud to talk about this is because these are folks that you trust. These are folks that are in your community. And so across 102 counties, 6,000 municipalities, we funded over 130 organizations to provide that technical assistance, to help you with whatever you need by way of state and federal resources, as well as local resources. So I'm sure Kenya talked about what the city has. I'm sure the counties talked about what they have. And now the state has talked about what we have. We have an abundance of resources to help you really weave through and navigate all of this complex stuff, right? That in a lot of ways, it makes sense, but it doesn't. And so what the Navigator program has done is we're doing door knocking. We're going to the communities. We've reached over 130,000 businesses to date, and we look forward to reaching more. And as we reach out about different programs, as we flag this for you all, our navigators really are there to give you that white glove customer service. And that's the key. And that's the linchpin of this. And to be clear, the Biden administration noted this model as a successful model. The Small Business Administration has navigators as well, which you should tap into as well. And so again, this is a resource we've extended. We're going to continue to fund it, and we hope that you tap into it. And if folks are interested in being a navigator, definitely let us know and reach out to myself or my team, and we're happy to address that. Next slide. So I just want to talk a little bit about BEP, because I know my folks CMS aren't on the call. Again, the state of Illinois spends a tremendous amount of money every year. And as taxpayers, what we want to do is figure out, how do we help you all tap into those resources, right? But you can't tap into the resources if you're not prepared to. So right now we're making you aware of the resources. What I'm going to talk about in a little bit is how you get prepared. And so if you look at the next slide, it'll talk about how we're preparing businesses to actually take advantage of resources through not just our BEP program, but through any resource in the state. So I'm sure you've heard about GATA, the Government Accountability and Transparency Act. The next thing you should hear about is BEP. And again, I think the key here is that if you want to actually be able to take advantage of resources, these are the things that we need. Next slide. So again, as you can see, these are some of the vendor requirements. These are some of the items that we need to determine that you are an MBE, you are a WBE, you are a DBE. And again, I want to emphasize this. We've got the city and we've got the county on the call. We have a fast track program with the city and the county. So essentially, if you are a certified vendor with the city or the county on this call, you can get certified with the state within 1 to 7 days. So there's no reason, right, why anybody that's certified with the city or certified with the county shouldn't be certified with the state. And so I want to make that clear, because again, while we talk about the funding that government spends, we also have a small business set aside program that's ran through the chief procurement officer of the state. In addition to that, every grant that we put out that's infrastructure has a BEP goal. And the key here is that folks can't meet that goal if you're not certified. So you can have a minority contractor, right, working on your project, but if they aren't BEP certified, we won't get credit. And so I just really want to emphasize this, because when we talk about all these federal resources, all of them have percentage goals and minority spend goals. And that's why we're here getting you all ready today. Next slide. So again, you can see some of the organizations, right, that accept BEP certification and work with BEP certified organizations. Again, the hosts of this call can speak to all of the opportunities that we have. But the key here is that making sure that you get ready and stay ready, so that when these opportunities come, you don't have to worry about scrambling to make sure you can prepare. Next slide. So again, my call for you all, my ask is that you continue to invest in Illinois, you continue to grow in Illinois, you continue to stay in Illinois. And we only scratched the surface in this presentation in terms of what we have to offer at DCO. ARPA is just one vein. We have 11 bureaus. My bureau is one of many. And so really the goal here is to get you all to engage with us, connect with our team, join our newsletters, join our listservs. Talk to us about what you're trying to achieve, and our goal is to make that a reality. And so with that, I appreciate everyone here on the call. I'm excited about potential questions, and I'm looking forward to seeing my inbox flooded with requests. So thank you all so much, and appreciate you all for having me today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for hopping on and providing this amazing overview of what's happening at the state. So for our participants, we are so grateful that you guys were able to join us today. You've heard from the city, you've heard from myself, you've heard from my amazing colleague, Nina, you've heard from the amazing team at the county, and of course, you've heard from Jonathan. We've got a lot of great questions in the Q&A. I think our team is going through answering those from the county as well as from our department. And so hopefully we'll be able to get to most of the questions. We have a very tight timeline here. We'll try and get to as many questions as possible, but just know that if we didn't get to your question, we'll make sure that we get a response to you. In terms of just what's next, I want to be clear around what's happening in the other tracks, as well as what we have planned for the rest of the day for this track. So after our conversation here, we will be pivoting to housing. And so we have our Department of Housing that will be joining us and providing an overview of the opportunities that are in the pipeline for their department. And then they will be followed by our arts team, and they'll be talking about opportunities that are available in the arts. So that's to come in this track. There are two other tracks that are happening simultaneously. Track A is community services, and that's where we have our team from the county and the state, as well as the city, providing an overview of social services as well as health. Then we'll also have some team members in that providing an overview of violence prevention. So just want to make sure that people are aware that's happening in Track A. And Track B, we have our transportation, infrastructure, and sustainability team. We have the Department of Transportation talking about opportunities that are happening there. Really important work that's happening, particularly in aviation, and the Department of Transportation with the infrastructure bill. So lots of great information there for many of our businesses. We'll have someone from the Department of Water, and then we'll have the Mayor's Chief Sustainability Officer talking about environment and sustainability. So that is Track B. So Track A, community services, Track B, transportation, infrastructure, and sustainability. And then our track will follow up with housing and arts next. And so we were supposed to end at 3. So we'll try and quickly maybe take a few questions, Travis, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I don't want him to get like the stick and pull me out of my office and take me off the Zoom. So we'll just answer.
I wouldn't dream of it.
Only a few questions we'll get to, and then we'll move to our colleagues in housing who are waiting in the wings. So lots of questions about the slides. So guys, just really quickly, in the right-hand corner of your Zoom should be a view. You should be able to change that so that you're maybe take it off of presenter view or speaker view, and you should be able to expand the slides. Jonathan, lots of folks want to partner with you. The question that I see here a couple of times is, how can people become a community navigator?
So that's a great question. Thank you for that. So, when we rolled this program out, we had allowed for a lot of our grantees to select who that they wanted to work with them on the ground. The goal is that ultimately we're going to have another opportunity for communities that are interested and organizations that are interested to join the program. However, if there is, a need, right, and there is, a place that you serve and that you believe that there's a value that you can add, please flag that for us, because, there is potentially an opportunity for us moving forward to think about, how do we weave folks in and how do we create additional opportunities. And so I think the short answer is reach out to us, let us know what you can do in the areas that you cover, and then we can work with you from there.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And then there is a request for just contact information. If you want to put that in the chat, Jonathan, where people can either reach you or your team or find out additional information around how to partner with the state, that would be helpful.
Couple things. I'll jump in here because I'm not afraid to tell my email. So Jonathan McGee, so Jonathan, JONATHAN .McGee, MCGEE @illinois.gov. Also, you can go to the Illinois Department of Commerce's website and go to the Regional Economic Development page, and you have my team's information there, where you can reach out to us, both phone numbers and email. So I am very reachable. I look forward to chatting with all of you all, and I'm excited to see so many people on this call interested in community economic development.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And one quick question before before we wrap up. There are a couple of questions about advances. For those that have been partnering with the city, we used to do advances probably like 10, 15 years ago. And so now we're exploring the advance process this year. And I believe there was a conversation around what that process will look like in an earlier session held by the city's budget director, as well as the city's comptroller. So definitely more information around how that is applicable to the different ARP programs to come. But yes, the city is definitely looking to do advances in the near future, particularly around ARP. And so Soshi and Jonathan, I'm not quite sure if you all have an advance process that you can maybe talk a little bit about that.
I was going to jump in. I'm just going to speak for DCEO. I'm not going to speak for the whole state, but the way that we do it at DCEO is once you've been awarded a grant, you've received a notice of state award. What we will then ask you for is a budget, right? And so what we'll say is that we'll give you kind of a percentage of that budget in advance, up to 2 months of what expenses would be, right? So in a lot of ways, if you want an advance, what we need to know from you is what's your budget? What's needed for 2 months of expenses. And so, we've done the percentage model in the past. And what we found was that many folks, didn't really know. And so we wanted to, or it wasn't enough. And so we wanted to make sure we get it right. And so whether it's $1 million or it's $200,000, once you receive that notice of state award and you execute your grant agreement, we then will allow for you to process your advance. And I will say for each organization on here, if you're not registered to get direct deposit with the state, you should do so with the comptroller's office, because that'll make sure you get your money quicker. Otherwise, we have to mail you a check. So that's how it works with DCEO. I'm not sure with the county.
Yeah, in terms of the county, we do not do advances, but are working with our partners to make sure that we're increasing capacity. And that's across the board. This is a new initiative with the city, county, and the state, looking to be very deliberate in our efforts to increase capacity within our partners that we want to help grow.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So just a couple of recaps here. Guys, many of the projects that fall under BACP, we will have those available on the city's Chicago Recovery Plan website. A lot of those activities will happen in Q2, Q3. DPD has an amazing program that's already open, but similar to them, projects related to ARP are in the hopper. Lots of support and programs that are also in the hopper with the county as well as the state, and existing programs that are available and for you guys to start to access right now. Want to give a huge shout out to all of our speakers. This is the first time that we've all been together on the same platform. I'm a fan of all of